What is poppin' YouTube? Back again with another video. Today we're doing my top wide receiver must start, must sits for week 2 fantasy football. Goal for this video, if you're 1-0, get you to 2-0. If you're 0-1, get you that first win of the season. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as we're putting out a video a day to help you win the chip. Let's go. The first player we're going to be talking about today is going to be T. Higgins. I talked about him in my video yesterday where I said he's a really great trade target right now in your fantasy football leagues because he put up an absolute dud. Nothing like putting up a dud on the scoreboard. Now it sucks. It absolutely sucks if you have T. Higgins because you're thinking, man, this guy deserves to be on my bench. We're going to punish him. We're going to punish him like any coach would do to you in high school. Well, no. T. Higgins deserves to be in your lineup this week. The Cincinnati Bengals are playing the Baltimore Ravens. And as much as we like to think that the Baltimore Ravens defense is super good, they gave up the 10th most points to wide receivers last week out of any defense. And now you're going to say to me, well, the Baltimore Ravens looked terrible. Lamar Jackson looked terrible. J.K. Dobbins got hurt. The Baltimore Ravens were playing the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, their wide receiver core, Nico Collins, Robert Woods, Tank Adele, with rookie C.J. Stroud. You're telling me that team put up the 10th most fantasy points for all wide receivers in the NFL? Yes. Add in all of a sudden this week with T. Higgins. Of course, Jamar Chase is a must start, but with T. Higgins, it is time that we start him because last week, even in the 0, and I say 0 points that he put up, he still played 54 snaps, had 34 routes run, and had 7 targets. Jamar Chase had 9 targets. So the fact is he only had 2 less targets than Jamar Chase, but yet it just didn't translate to great fantasy points. Now, Jamar Chase didn't really translate to great fantasy points either, but he at least got on the board. So we are expecting a big week this week out of T. Higgins, back to probably where he's normally. You drafted him in the 3rd round of your fantasy football drafts, and he's going to continue to provide value. Don't give up now. Start T. Higgins in week 2. My second must start wide receiver is going to be Mike Williams as the Chargers play the Tennessee Titans. Looking on last week, Mike Williams was the clear wide receiver 2. And now we really didn't have any doubt that Mike Williams was going to be the clear wide receiver 2 in the Chargers offense when we're comparing Mike Williams to Josh Palmer or even Quentin Johnson. But if we look at the stats according to PFF, Mike Williams, 62 snaps, 31 routes run, 5 total targets, but only put up 8.5 fantasy points. Now, that's not great. We're talking about Mike Williams last week finishing in the wide receiver 50 category on points per game last week. So you're saying to me, Caleb, why am I going to start Mike Williams? Because each and every week, it's boom or bust with our boy Mike Williams. And the Tennessee Titans, they just got out playing the New Orleans Saints. We just saw Rashid Shaheed absolutely dominate. We saw Michael Thomas absolutely dominate. And Chris Olave had an okay day. Every sign is pointing to Mike Williams being an absolute smash this week, with Justin Herbert being a way better quarterback than Derek Carr for the New Orleans Saints. We can see this offense absolutely hum. And even last week, them playing against the Dolphins, the offense didn't look bad. Mike Williams just didn't get as many targets and as many opportunities as we thought. So I'm really in on Mike Williams this week. I'm ready to re-roll the dice because every week with Mike Williams, boom or bust. And I believe this is a big boom week waiting to happen. My third must start, and this is just a very, very generic must start, and probably shouldn't even put him on because you're going to be starting him. It's just going to be Calvin Ridley. I really just want to talk about Calvin Ridley and the amazing week 1 that he had. Now, we could be saying the same thing. You might be saying, Caleb, you might as well just tell me to start Tyreek Hill. Like, this is dumb analysis. And I just want to talk really quick, really briefly. Calvin Ridley, 57 snaps, 34 routes run, 11 total targets, 24 fantasy points, putting him as the wide receiver 6 on a fantasy points per game basis this last week. The thing that we have to understand with how the Colts defended Calvin Ridley, he had all of that work in the first half. They really adjusted to him in the second half. But this week, the Jaguars go up against the Chiefs. And as much as we don't know if Travis Kelce is going to play, we assume Travis Kelce is going to play this week because he was super close last week. This is going to be a high-scoring affair. And if it's a high-scoring affair, that means the ball is going to be thrown around the yard a lot. And that's going to be a great thing for Calvin Ridley, the number 1 target in the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. So Calvin Ridley must start this week. You probably already knew that, but I just wanted to address it. Calvin Ridley must start. My 4th must start, and this is like in a little bit deeper league, maybe where you're not just starting 7 or 8, maybe a start 9, a start 10. It's going to be Michael Thomas. Us earlier when we were talking about the ways that the Tennessee Titans just gave up so much fantasy points to Rashid Shaheed, Michael Thomas, and Chris Olave, we have to really consider that Michael Thomas, he looked good. He looked good. I was wrong. I didn't start him enough leagues last week, but we will be starting him in a lot of our leagues this week. Michael Thomas, 11.1 fantasy points, played in 51 snaps, 34 routes run, 7 total targets. Now, if we compare that to Chris Olave, who we assume is the younger, more dominant wide receiver on the Saints, Chris Olave had 51 snaps, 32 routes run, 10 total targets. So they played the same amount of snaps. Michael Thomas actually even ran more routes. Now, Rashid Shaheed getting a little bit more of the target share. I think it's more of an anomaly than what it might be. So I know a lot of people rush to the waiver wire to get Rashid Shaheed. He's still the wide receiver 3 here. Michael Thomas is low-key kind of pushing the wide receiver 1 type territory for the New Orleans Saints, which if he and Derek Carr can connect on a few of these more passes, we could be talking about Michael Thomas as an absolute steal at his ADP. So in a deeper league, start Michael Thomas in your flex. It's a Monday night game playing against the Carolina Panthers. Should be a really good in-division matchup for Michael Thomas. Now, we talked about all the great wide receivers that I would be starting this week. Now let's move on to some wide receivers that I'm sitting. The first guy we're going to be talking about that you need to be sitting is Drizzy Drake London for the Atlanta Falcons. Drizzy Drake, man, we were excited for you. We thought this might be your breakout year, but it's clear. The quarterback woes for the Atlanta Falcons continue. The Atlanta Falcons should have looked at other options this offseason, but nope, stuck with Desmond Ridder. Drake London and Kyle Pitts were out there just kind of running routes. Drake London had 1 total target in the 46 snaps that he played, and he ran 20 total routes. Now, Kyle Pitts had 3, just to give that in comparison, but Drake London, 46 snaps and only 1 target is just ridiculous. 20 routes run. That shows you how little the Atlanta Falcons were even trying to throw the ball. So for us going forward, there's just not enough passing attempts. There's just not enough volume in this offense. I mean, clearly Tyler Algier, clearly Bijan Robinson, the offensive line is great. The thing holding them back is their quarterback play. And they're going to lean into their strength, which is the rushing attempts. So until we see Drake London have an okay week, maybe 2 weeks in a row, then I might feel comfortable starting Drake London. But if you drafted Drake London in the 5th, 6th round, you're waking up this week not feeling great about that. So I'm not saying drop Drake London by any means, but I'm definitely saying sit him. Do not start Drake London. If your life depends on it, I would not be starting Drizzy Drake. Moving on to our second sit player this week, we're going to be talking about Terry McLaurin. Scary Terry, the man, the myth, the legend. Last week only had 5 targets on 36 routes run, played in 63 snaps. Now, the Washington Commanders did get the win, but Terry McLaurin only put up 5 fantasy points per game. I mean, Deontay Johnson even put up more, and he got injured. So that's to say, I know Terry McLaurin was coming in a little banged up with that turf toe. So you can't attribute all of his lack of fantasy football production to his injury, but we can contribute quite a bit to how the team played as well. I mean, Jahan Dotson didn't play well, only 40 routes run, 7 targets. Curtis Samuel had 5 targets. Logan Thomas had the 7 targets, which tied second on the team. We need to see it from Sam Howell. The offense looked good. It just seemed like the typical rookie quarterback where he's just going to throw it to whoever's open. That's a great way to play actual football. Get your whole team involved, get the defense on its toes. But for fantasy football, we want these target hogs, and Terry McLaurin just didn't have it in week 1. So in week 2, I will be sitting Terry McLaurin everywhere I have him. I will be watching very closely because I wouldn't be surprised if his target share goes up this week. I think we could see a resurgence for Terry McLaurin, but they're going up against the Broncos this week. So I will be sitting my boy Terry McLaurin. And my third player we are sitting this week is the boy wonder, Jacoby Myers himself. Jacoby Myers, amazing fantasy football week last week. When we look at his fantasy points, he was 3rd with 29 fantasy points. Now, we're not starting him for a few different reasons. Number 1, he did put up really great fantasy points, but we have to monitor. He did leave the game with a hand injury late in the game and didn't return. That is worrisome for us just a little bit. I mean, when we're looking at his targets though, he ran 24 routes and had 10 total targets. So he had a really healthy target share. I'm just worried about not only his injury, but also his matchup. The Raiders are going up this week against the Buffalo Bills. And as much as we saw the offense struggle on Monday Night Football, the defense looked amazing. Now, they were struggling to stop the run, but the Jets running attack was on fire. The passing attack was iffy. The Raiders are nowhere near the type of offense, even without Aaron Rodgers, that the Jets have. So I'm a little bit hesitant, and especially with the injury risk with Jacoby Myers. I will be sitting Jacoby Myers. You probably drafted him late, so you're debating starting him. His projection is probably going to be a lot higher this week based on his performance last week. But I will be sitting Jacoby Myers in week 2 of my fantasy football lineups. So I appreciate everyone tuning in here today. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're going to continue to put out this type of content for you each and every day as we pursue fantasy football excellence. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.